Hello friends, welcome back. In this session we are going to discuss about various objectives and rules of medico-legal autopsy. I suggest you to watch the part 1 of the medico-legal autopsy in which we have discussed the different types of autopsy. So the medico-legal autopsy, which is defined as investigative dissection of the dead body, is also known as necropsy or post-mortem examination. Let us begin with some historical aspects. The first medico-legal autopsy in the world was carried out in the city Bologna of Italy in the year 1302 by Bartolomeo da Varignano. Whereas in India, first medico-legal autopsy was carried out at MMC Chennai in the year 1693 by physician Dr. Edward Berkeley. And you can see his tomb near that MMC in Ordnance Lane. So I would like to caution that some pictures may be disturbing. So viewers' discretion strictly advised. Let us come to the objectives of medico-legal autopsy or aims of medico-legal autopsy. That is to find out who died in cases of unknown bodies, charred bodies, or the body is in advanced state of decomposition, etc. Then, when death happened, to find out approximate time of death, time of injuries, etc. Then, why the person died, that is to ascertain the cause of death, which is the main objective of medico-legal autopsy. Suppose in case of natural death, whether the person died due to myocardial infarction or any other cause. In case of unnatural death, whether died due to opium poisoning like that, or died of electrocution, or died of asphyxia due to hanging, etc. What injuries are present? Description of various injuries and documentation of that is very, very important. Among those injuries, which injury led to that death or fatal injury? Then where death occurred? It is place of occurrence of crime. Then, apart from this, to establish manner of death, whether it is a natural death or due to unnatural causes like suicidal or homicidal or accidental death. Then manner of infliction of injuries, self-inflicted or inflicted by others, what kind of weapon used for those, etc. Here I want to stress that identifying the manner of death is not the duty of the autopsy surgeon. It is a duty of the investigating officer to determine whether it is a case of suicidal or homicidal or accidental death in case of unnatural death. The autopsy surgeon can guide the or can help the investigating officer in establishing the suicide or homicide or accidental death, etc. Then collection of evidence. That is again for ascertaining the cause of death, like collection or preservation of viscera and the preservation of various tissue samples for histopathological examination, etc. Then body fluids and trace evidence if present in the dead body, again for helping the investigating officer. Then, in case of newborn death, to determine age of the fetus, which will help in determining the viability of the fetus. Then whether it is a case of live birth or stillbirth or dead born, etc. In case of live birth, what is the cause of death? So these are the main objectives of medico-legal autopsy. These objectives can be remembered by the mnemonic 6 wives and 1 husband, 6 W's for these who, when, why, etc. and 1 H for how the death happened. Then before seeing the rules of medico-legal autopsy, what are the documents that are essential for conducting autopsy? As we have seen already in the previous episode, that is a requisition or authorization letter from the investigating officer, shortly called IO, or magistrate, that has to be supplied in duplicate. Usually the investigating police officer will be sub-inspector, or in case of a murder, generally a sub-inspector of police. In Tamil Nadu, in certain cases, even head constable can act as an investigating officer. Then, history of the case. That also has to be supplied in 2 copies. Then, inquest report, otherwise called a Panchanama, or form number 86, that is properly filled, which carries details of the dead body, identification marks present on it, and clothes present on it. Then injuries as observed by the investigating officer. Then apparent cause of death as judged by the investigating officer, etc. That also has to be supplied in duplicate. Then dead body challan that carries details of the disease like his name, age, sex, address, religion, etc., where the body was found, and the distance of that place from the mortuary, etc. Or death intimation report. It is otherwise called a death intimation report also. Then accident register. That is in case of hospital deaths, is a AR copy. That is that also has to be obtained from the hospital and provided to the doctor. Suppose the case has been already referred from the primary center to that hospital, then that AR copy that is being issued from the primary center, that also has to be obtained and that also has to be supplied to the autopsy surgeon. So, accident register copy from the hospital where the death happened, as well as from initially from where the patient has been referred, from that hospital also. Both the accident register copy is required. Then rough sketch of occurrence spot in case of road traffic accidents. Then in Tamil Nadu, in murder cases, usually first information report is required, shortly called FIR copy. So doctor has to receive all the necessary documents and he has to carefully peruse all these documents before proceeding for autopsy. So let us move on to main aspect of this today's discussion, that is rules for medico-legal autopsy. Before going through that, I would like to stress that even dead person has right for dignity. So every dead body has to be handled with the proper respect. That is very important. So as soon as the body arrives in the mortuary for postmortem, till the autopsy is being started, that has to be initially labeled with the details of the disease, time of arrival to the mortuary, and it is being stored in this cold chamber. Who can do it? Autopsy can be done by any allopathic registered medical practitioner with MBBS degree, preferably to be done by the doctor with specialization in forensic medicine. Because of inadequate specialization in India, even allopathic doctors are allowed to conduct autopsy. But in case of suspicious cases or the cases in which public agitation was there, etc., in those cases, the RMP, a registered medical practitioner, can request the investigating officer to approach nearby teaching institutions where autopsy surgeons are available. But we must know that RMP cannot directly refer the medico-legal autopsy cases to the higher centers. Only through that investigating officer, it can be sent to the higher centers. That where it can be done, it has to be done only in the well-equipped mortuary or authorized autopsy centers. Sometimes it can be done at the site itself, especially in cases of exhumation, if the deceased body is in advanced state of decomposition, where shifting of the body to the remote mortuary center is not possible. Then in that situation, autopsy can be carried out at the spot itself. Or in cases of mass disasters, where a lot of casualties are there, then it can be done at the spot itself with the permission from the magistrate and all. But as far as possible, autopsy has to be conducted only in the mortuary, because there only we will get all the facilities for meticulous autopsy procedure. So as you are seeing here in the picture, the body is being shifted from the exhumation site to the autopsy, this mortuary. Sometimes open air autopsy, in case of unavoidable situations, it can be carried out like this in the same picture. So this is the ideal mortuary setup with the proper lighting, autopsy table, facilities for water, all these things should be available. And there will be exhaust provision also to avoid smell and all. Then mortuary is better equipped with an inbuilt video camera for recording of autopsy in certain cases like custodial deaths, and it will be better to get this microscopic investigations, histopathology investigations, etc., for visualization of any pathological findings in the mortuary itself. So if these facilities are available, it will be better. So this is the cold chamber where the bodies are preserved, where the temperature is maintained at 4 degrees Celsius. It is the duty of the mortuary technician to maintain the temperature at 4 degrees Celsius. If it is higher, it may provoke decomposition. If it is lower, say 0 degree or minus degree, then icicles will form in the muscles, tissues, etc. That will hamper histopathological examination. Okay, the histopathological examination will become impossible in case if it is required. So before starting autopsy, doctor has to take universal precautions with the proper protection here to avoid any infections from the deceased body, etc. So this is very important. So goggles, mask, double gloves to avoid any accidental cuts, gum boots, apron, all should be properly, that has to be worn by the surgeon. That is very important. So let us see this MCQ. Average temperature at which body is maintained in cold chamber: 12 degree, 8 degree, 4 degree, or minus 8 degrees Celsius. So obviously the choice is C, that is 4 degrees Celsius. So as you have already seen, authorization from the investigating officer or magistrate is required and should be given in the written form to start the autopsy. Then doctor should carefully peruse all the documents that is being provided, starting from requisition letter, inquest report, FIR copy, etc., even hospital records in case of hospital deaths before autopsy. That will give idea while autopsy what are the things to be concentrated, whether viscera has to be preserved or not, to understand better the disease process, to, to arrive at the conclusion of cause of death in case of obscure autopsy, etc. So careful perusal of all these records is very important. See in this one case, the chest X-ray of the deceased has been provided from the hospital, which shows a broken tip of knife lying in the thoracic cavity. And because of this available X-ray of the deceased, it is easy for that autopsy surgeon to trace out this broken tip of knife. Immediately after opening the thoracic cavity, it can be easily recovered and preserved. So that is why all the documents, the hospital records, like X-rays, the CT scan reports, everything if available, it will be easier for conducting autopsy in a quick time. Then preliminary autopsy data. So apart from all the reports, if required, doctor can consult the investigating officer for further information about the disease. Then, if necessary, he can go through all the medical records, hospital records, and the personal medical records that is being provided by the family members to understand in case of natural death the disease process that is prevailing in the patient before death. Then consultation with the doctor or physician or surgeon who treated the disease. The surgeon can give idea about the nature of injury, severity of the injury in which he is operated. The statement of family members regarding the physical and mental condition of the deceased person. Then circumstances surrounding death to find out whether it is a suicide case or it could be otherwise like accident or homicide case, etc. As far as possible, in certain cases like poisoning, pyrometers, road traffic accidents, sexual offences, murder, etc., the doctor can request the investigating officer to arrange for the visit to the scene of crime. That will help, especially in cases of crime, to exclude it in favor of accident, suicide, or even natural causes by visiting to the crime of that scene of crime. So these are all various scene of crime images. Normally, autopsy will be conducted by single doctor only. In certain cases, two doctors should together conduct autopsy, like any suspicious unnatural death, any suicide or unnatural death, or any suspicious death of a married woman that occurs within 7 years of marriage, that dowry deaths cases. Then in any custodial deaths, like death occurring in police custody, or in case of any suspicious deaths occurring in case in prisons, if the magistrate orders for it, then two doctors has to conduct. Then death occurring in operation theatre while conducting a surgery. Then second autopsy, when the first autopsy report is not clear, or there is any controversy regarding the first autopsy report, or it was not carried out properly, then the second autopsy is requested. So then in these circumstances, two doctors should conduct autopsy. Then as far as possible, it should be conducted at the earliest without any unnecessary delay. After receiving the requisition, doctor has to proceed to the mortuary to start the autopsy. In certain situations, doctor has to request the X-ray of the entire body, especially in cases of bomb explosions and gunshot injuries, firearm injuries, just to locate the projectile, which will help the doctor to identify these projectiles and preserve that during the autopsy without wasting much time. See, sometimes the bullet may go and lodge in some unsuspected locations like in the knee joint or inside the vertebra and all. If the X-ray is not taken, it will be difficult for the surgeon to locate exactly where this bullet is lodged. It will reduce a lot of time. See, in this case, that gunshot entry wound is initially located in this left side of chest. After opening the thoracic cavity, doctor has seen that there are some lacerations in the descending thoracic aorta. That is, bullet has entered the aorta. But in the thoracic cavity, doctor couldn't trace any bullet there. So he ordered X-ray of the entire body. In one of the X-rays, it has been shown that this bullet is situated in the thigh somewhere. So after dissecting the thigh region, then the doctor found that the bullet finally lodged in this femoral artery. So what happened is, after piercing the chest, it enters into the thoracic aorta and carried via blood and finally get lodged in the femoral artery in the thigh. So entry wound is in chest, but a bullet is there in the thigh. So the X-ray is not taken. Doctor has to keep on dissecting the body, wasting much time. So to avoid this, X-ray has to be taken prior to starting autopsy, especially in case of firearm injuries and bomb explosions. Then autopsy has to be done as far as possible only during daytime, that too in the natural light. Usually it has to be done before 5 p.m. After 5 p.m. if the body is reached, then it has to be postponed to the next day. Why? Because it has to be conducted in daylight is certain color changes like jaundice be present in the deceased body. We cannot make it out with the exact color. We can miss it. Similarly, the various color changes occurring in the bruises or in the postmortem hypostasis or staining, they are well appreciated only during daylight, not in artificial light. That is why it is always advised to conduct autopsy in the daylight. So the body is received late in the evening. Before starting autopsy in the next day, doctor initially has to note down certain findings in the deceased body, like rate of fall of temperature by using the thermocouple or a digital thermometer inserted into the rectum. Every 30 minutes for 5 settings, we have to measure the rate of fall of temperature, which will help in the determination of time since death. Then, again for the same purpose, the observation of postmortem lividity, which initially starts in patches, usually 30 minutes to 2 hours after death. After later, they will combine with each other to form a uniform pattern. Similarly, The rigor mortis will be fully established in the body in 12 hours after death. These factors will help in a determination of time since death. So these things doctor has to note it down before keeping in the cold chamber. Then autopsy may be conducted on the next day as early as possible. So let us try this. Postmortem should be preferably conducted under daylight, mercury vapor lamp, sodium vapor lamp, any other. So daylight should be the best choice here. So as we already discussed, that a body has to be identified properly. Who has to identify? It is the duty of the police constable or the IO in charge of the dead body. He has to identify the particular deceased body along with one of the relatives. Doctor has to obtain signature from the identifying police constable as well as from the relative who identified the dead body. Suppose in case lot of dead bodies are there, there is every chance that doctor will conduct autopsy in some other body. Some bodies may be misidentified. So to avoid this, it is a duty of the police to properly identify which body he is in charge of it. And in case of unknown bodies, or in case of grossly decomposed bodies, etc., doctor can facilitate the police officer to record various identification marks, to record fingerprints, etc., which will help in the later identification of the deceased. Similar, like in case of advanced decomposition, normally the skin of the palms, soles, etc., will peel off itself. So that peeled epidermis from the fingers can be put by inserting our own gloved fingers into that peeled of epidermis, which is stained with the ink, and fingerprints can be recorded. So in this way, doctor can help the police officer to record the these fingerprints, etc., helpful for identification in case of decomposed bodies, as well as to take the photographs also. After removing the clothes and all, IO has to be called to record the photographs also. The doctor has to ensure that unauthorized patients should not be present while the autopsy is being done in the mortuary, because a lot of people present in the mortuary may hamper the movement. Then there is chance of leakage of vital information also. So only authorized persons concerned with the autopsy should be present. If the investigating police officer wishes, then he can be allowed if necessary. Similarly, doctor who treated the patient can be called by the autopsy surgeon if he decides that a treating physician could provide him some vital information regarding the deceased. Otherwise, apart from this investigating police officer or the treating physician, unauthorized persons should not be allowed to enter the mortuary. So this is very important, and it is the right of the autopsy surgeon. He is the captain of the ship there. It is the right of the autopsy surgeon to decide who are all to be present inside the mortuary. Then in cases of custodial deaths, as we already discussed, autopsy has to be done by a team of 2 doctors. And it is a duty of the autopsy surgeon to take the simultaneous video recording of the autopsy procedure with his voice also. He has to comment while the autopsy is being done, what are all the findings, and that also has to be recorded along with the video recording. And the recorded video that has to be sent to the National Human Rights Commission, New Delhi. Normally, the autopsy surgeon has to provide these recordings to the investigating officer concerned with the custodial tests. Then, in each and every case, examination must be meticulous, thorough, and complete as far as medico-legal autopsy is concerned. So, it involves the opening of all the 3 main body cavities like thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, cranial cavity with inspection of brain. So all the internal organs with opening of all the 3 major cavities should be done in all autopsy cases. There is no question of partial autopsy here as far as medical legal autopsy is concerned. Apart from positive findings, vital negative findings also should be recorded in the report. If there is any discrepancy between the doctor and the investigating officer with respect to the injuries present in the dead body, suppose yes, there is any discrepancy that is given in the inquest report being given by the investigating officer, then doctor can call that investigating officer while the autopsy is being done to mention those injuries so that he can alter those description of injuries mentioned in the inquest report. Okay, that can be altered. So to avoid the discrepancies, the IO can be called to the mortuary. While autopsy is being done, it is better to dictate to the assistant so that while the doctor is involved in conducting autopsy with the gloved hands and all, the assistant can record whatever he describes while autopsy is being done. After autopsy is over, the doctor has to go through those notes being written by the assistant, verify it, and attest the report. He has to sign that report also. In the absence of assistant, doctor can record it using some digital devices like tape recorder and all. If that also not available, then immediately after finishing autopsy, when the memory is fresh, he can immediately write those findings in the record. Okay, he has to immediately record those findings. Even if the body is grossly mutilated, fragmented, dismembered, or highly decomposed, autopsy should be performed, because even though in those cases certain vital evidences or findings may be recovered, may be discovered. Okay, that will help to establish the cause of death, manner of death, etc. So, irrespective of nature of condition of the dead body, autopsy should be meticulously and properly done. If the autopsy surgeon come across any foreign bodies or trace evidence while conducting autopsy, all those should be preserved, labeled, sent for analysis if necessary. Like in case of sexual offense victim, etc., some hair is present in the inner garments or body, to check whether it is of her own body hair or maybe hair of accused also. So those have to be properly preserved and sent for lab investigations. Unimportant any foreign bodies, etc., may be given to the investigating officer. So the doctor has to provide all these foreign bodies, whatever come across by conducting autopsy, to be handed over to the investigating officer. If it is in all cases of suspected poisoning, or the investigating officer request for the preservation of viscera, or during the autopsy, doctor has the suspicion of poisoning, or no definite cause of death can be found out, so to rule out poisoning, etc., then doctor has to preserve certain organs for toxicological analysis. Normally, preserved viscera are entire stomach with contents, approximately 30 centimeters from small intestine along with its contents, then half kg of liver, then half of both kidneys, along with some 30 ml of blood as well as urine. All these have to be put in proper containers and they have to be properly labeled and sealed also. And they have to be dispatched to forensic science laboratory through police constable after obtaining the receipt from him. That is to establish or to rule out the particular poisoning as the cause of death. Then, as far as embalming is concerned, it should always be done after autopsy is completed, not prior to autopsy, because the embalming, what it will cause is it hardens the tissues and HPE becomes impossible. As well as it alters the toxicological evidence also. Poisoning may not be detected in case of embalmed bodies. So after autopsy is properly done, body has to be stitched, clearly washed, and restored to best possible cosmetic appearance, and it has to be properly packed and given into the investigating officer, who later hand over to the relatives. So we have to get the signature of that investigating officer. Normally the police constable in charge of the dead body will receive it, but the doctor has to obtain the signature in the register maintained. All the close articles that trace elements like bullets, etc., recovered from the deceased, all have to be mentioned clearly in the postmortem report, and all have to be handed over to the police in a sealed cover after obtaining the receipt that they received these articles, bullets, etc., recovered from the dead body. Then postmortem findings should not be discussed with any unauthorized persons. Like unauthorized persons not allowed in the mortuary. Doctor should avoid unnecessarily talking to any persons not related with the case. Okay, only with the investigating officers, legal authorities, public prosecutors, we can discuss about this postmortem findings. So all these findings he has observed should be kept confidential. See all these articles like this that also like clothes, this wallets, this watch, these rings and all have to be properly protected and given to the investigating officer after obtaining the receipt. That may help sometimes for further investigation by the investigating officer. So doctor has to complete the report as soon as possible. Generally the report has to be completed and given within 24 hours of completion of autopsy. The report nothing should be erased. Any alterations that are made, any additions, or if you want to score out, that has to be properly scored out, and the initials has to be put after every alteration. Then and there, doctor has to put the initial. That is very important. Then PM certificate should be prepared in 3 copies. The original copy should be handed over to the either a judicial executive magistrate, and a duplicate copy to the investigating police officer, and the third copy should be maintained in the department itself as the office copy, and that also should be preserved in high confidence status. Then interested parties requiring postmortem certificates like the relatives, if they approach the doctor usually should not give these postmortem certificates directly to the relatives. Instead, the doctor has to direct those relatives to approach either the this magistrate or the investigating officer of that particular police station. Either they can get from them, or they can get the no objection certificate from the investigating officer. On production of that no objection certificate to the autopsy surgeon, then that autopsy doctor can give the copy of postmortem certificate, provided that NOC is being given by the relative who needs this certificate. So without NOC, doctor should not issue certificate. Then postmortem certificates, this is the model that contains generally 3 parts. Preamble with some basic details of the disease, then identification marks, when the autopsy started, when it is completed, etc. Then main content is the postmortem findings, external internal findings with the positive and negative findings. Then third part is the opinion based on these findings as to the cause of death. So what is the cause of death, the time since death, etc. So this is the main contents of the postmortem certificate. Finally, this as far as autopsy is concerned, it should be done free of charge without collecting any fees, and all forms of bribery should be avoided. And a doctor, if found guilty, may be arrested in case he indulges in demanding bribery from the relatives. That's all for now, and thank you for watching. We will see you in the next session with the other parts of this topic. Thank you.